told them they need to post the guys over here. I told them that the Secret Service. I told them that Tuesday. I told them to post guys over here.
All right, the latest on the assassination attempt on former President Trump during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. Senator Chuck Grassley, an Iowa Republican, calling on the Secret Service to explain claims from a Butler police officer that the agency met with local law enforcement days before the shooting. In the body cam footage you just heard and are now looking at, the officer says he told the Secret Service to secure that building where the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, fired those shots, striking Trump, wounding 2 others, and killing a retired firefighter, Comperatore. A spokesperson for the Secret Service saying the agency is reviewing that body cam footage. Do want to talk more about all of this, so let's bring in Mike Harrigan, the former chief of the FBI's firearms training program, now a partner at the Pax Group, LLC. As always, Mike, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
No, thank you, Josh. Always good to join you here.
All right, so I do want to ask you first about that body cam video that is, of course, now making the rounds. We know that Senator Grassley has said he wants a full investigation into all of this. But if this is the case, what are the possible implications here?
Well, I think, there's been a lot of information out there from this incident. And I think this new information just gives us another angle on what may have gone wrong. I think it's good for the public to see this, and it's good to see Senator Grassley engaged on this. I think he's doing his job in the oversight department of engaging and putting this information out. And, I think, we know that it failed. We know there was a problem there. So now it really goes to why, what the failures were, and how do we fix them? How does the Secret Service fix this situation so it doesn't happen again? That's really where we are.
Do you feel, and again, this is based on your experience overall, we've talked about this in the past, but do you feel that investigators have released enough information about what happened there in Butler that day?
Traditionally in these kind of situations, the Secret Service and federal law enforcement, normally they're very tight-lipped in what happens. In this case, I think they've been very transparent. I think information has gotten out there. I think leadership of the Secret Service has gotten out there and really talked about it. I think it's good. I think they have been as transparent as they can be. Now, the tricky part here, again, with an investigation, there's some complexity here. There's the FBI side where it comes from the, finding out what the motivations of the shooter was and whether there's a larger conspiracy. And then back to the Secret Service, which would be, how do they fix procedures and policies and what went wrong that day? But it's a little bit complex. They have to be careful what they put out so that they don't overshare and compromise the investigation or make snap judgments on things that may not turn out to be right after the investigation is complete. But I think in the overall, view of this thing, I think they've done a great job. I think they have put it out there. And I think, the political leaders in Congress have done a great job of forcing oversight and forcing transparency, holding hearings. I think that's great. It's good for the American people to hear about this. So, no complaints on the transparency today.
What sort of questions do you still have that you hope will be answered maybe soon or in the coming months?
I think the primary thing here is a definitive finding that the FBI, again, has to go through its investigative steps, a definitive opinion on whether he acted alone or whether there were other players involved or other communications with foreign nationals or others. Once that's taken off the plate and the FBI issues its definitive opinion on that, I think that puts us in a good place. Then we can turn and look now at the Secret Service, and we can allow all those facts and circumstances to come together so that a good top-to-down examination is done here for the men and women of the Secret Service. I mean, they're very, relying on leadership in the Secret Service to drive change, to drive innovations, to drive an assessment of policies and procedures so that their lives are safeguarded while they do their job. So, I think at the end of the day, I think we're going to have some good answers here, and I think the Secret Service really will be stronger for it at the end, and I think the American people will be more confident in the Secret Service once concrete changes are made, once a good assessment is done, an admission of the shortfalls, and there's a good communication with the public on what steps are taken to mitigate those shortfalls there in the Secret Service.
So ABC News and some other news agencies now are reporting that in a private meeting between Trump and the FBI, law enforcement actually described the shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, as, quote, strikingly intelligent, and saying that he struggled for years with an undiagnosed disorder. No motive, they said, has been determined. And we know the shooter had searched different Republican and Democratic officials and when they would appear in public. So is it possible, again, in your expertise, that Trump just happened to be the next person that was there in Pennsylvania?
You know, that's absolutely a possibility. You know, whenever we have these situations where someone does an unspeakable act of violence, especially against a future potential national leader, and innocent people are killed, as they were here, you know, we look for a reason. We want to know why. We can't really accept, as people, good people can't accept that someone just made a choice to do it. So we always look for a deeper reason. They're mentally ill. Do they have some kind of political motivation? But sometimes when people do violence, they just do it because, and they're the only ones that are ever going to know why they did it. And it appears, based on the information we have now, that he was searching for both Democratic and Republican potential targets. And there was some other reason he did this other than necessarily an anti-Trump kind of philosophy. So, you know, sometimes these young men are looking for publicity. They're looking for some reason to, get notoriety, and they strike out at a person that might be famous or maybe has some national exposure. But yeah, we may never know why he did it. And that's something that we have to be prepared to deal with, and just understand that there's people out there that do violence for the sake of violence, and that their motivations and their reasons only they'll know, and they take to the grave with them.
You kind of already touched on this, but my last question for you is, where does this investigation go from here? I'm sure we are going to have more congressional hearings that happen in the near future, but where does the investigation overall go from here?
Well, the most important part of the investigation, of course, is going to be the elimination of any type of foreign actor or foreign influence or a larger conspiracy. So once the Bureau finishes their work and closes that door, really what it comes down to now is the shift to the oversight process. Would be Congress and the IG over there at DHS to really dial down into the Secret Service and find the causation of this, find the shortfalls in supervision, policies, and procedures, and really come together and do a good independent assessment. It can't be driven by partisan politics, and it can't be driven by trying to protect the Secret Service or anything else. It has to be driven on getting to the facts, to really look at the cause of this failure. And then what's important is for such a finding to be translated into action, policies, and procedural changes within the Secret Service, so that the American people reestablish their trust and confidence that the Secret Service is going to protect our electoral system. And as I alluded to before, you know, a systematic failure like this doesn't point to the expertise or the dedication of the individuals in the Secret Service. It comes down to leadership and maybe some policies and procedures that may have been outdated or overlooked and need to be changed and refreshed. But at the end of the day, Secret Service is going to be stronger for this, and hopefully the American people's confidence in the Secret Service, and especially in our electoral system, is reestablished, because there is no good that comes out of this type of violence against political leaders in any which way.
All right. Mike Harrigan, thank you so much, as always, for taking the time to join us and break down all the latest. Is there anything else you want to add before I let you go?
No, I think, Josh, the coverage by the media has been very fair here and probative. And I think that when we look at the oversight of Congress, obviously when you're in a law enforcement position, you can bristle at accountability at times when it comes down. It's one of those things that has to happen on the federal level. Generally these agencies, their accountability comes from Congress. That's their oversight job, and the IG that oversights these organizations. So I think that, as you see this accountability happen, we have to understand that it's for the greater good. Accountability is good. It's good in our system. It helps to make our executive departments stronger when they have to justify their actions, and they're held accountable by our elected representatives. So at the end of the day, I think things will be better here. And I think that as a society, we'll be stronger when this oversight, comes into play and at the final finding here.
All right, Michael Harrigan, thank you again for being here with us today and helping to break down the latest developments. As we know, these are happening quite a bit, so I'm sure we will have you back very soon. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome, Josh.